Thank you for listening to Hustle and Heart. I'm your host, Edie Weintraub. Today we welcome Roshanda Pratt, aka The Rosho Live. From a campus TV show to a 20-year career in TV news, Roshanda's journey is all about owning your voice and amplifying it with confidence. She's here to share insights on conquering imposter syndrome, building camera confidence, and creating a visibility strategy that works. Roshanda, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure and honor. I'm excited about this conversation.
Me too. Well, I recall I first discovered you on TikTok, I think also during the pandemic. So I am grateful to have this time with you and to hear the story directly from the source. So for our listeners who don't know and have not had the chance to experience your smiling face, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Roshanda Pratt. Many people know me in the digital streets as the Rosho Live, a nickname that I've received 20 years working behind the scenes as a television news producer. My journey in television actually started in the 4th grade. My mom and dad are from the beautiful country of Trinidad and Tobago. And so as the American citizen of the family born here in the U.S., my dad told me as a 4th grader that it's my duty and responsibility to know what's going on in my country and my community. So while my friends were watching the Smurfs, I was watching Peter Jennings, Tom Brokaw, and Walter Cronkite. I am totally dating myself, by the way.
Okay.
I grew up watching them and fell in love with storytelling, fell in love with being informed about really what's going on in my country and my community. And fast forward to high school, a friend of mine invited me to be a part of our version of television news. And he said, hey, you like to talk a lot, Roshanda. And he was right. So you should do this with us. And I fell in love with just being informed and making sure the people around me were informed. And so that started my journey into television news. Went to college, majored in mass communication, started my career while I was still in college. And for 20 years, I had the capabilities of writing history from everything from tsunamis, 9/11, the war on terror, anything you could think of. In 20 years in American history or world history, I've been on the front lines covering those stories. And then it came to a point where about 2015, the world changed and we were introduced to live streaming. And I saw that as another way to tell stories, another way to keep people informed. So I started the Rosho Live online and really was sharing with people what I know, Edie, which is this is how you tell a story and this is how you book yourself for TV media. And it just spawned into a brand centered around communication when it comes to digital platforms. And so from there, we created a brand. I was able to leave my television news job. Within 6 months of leaving TV, I doubled my news salary. I've been able to speak internationally in Paris, France, work with brands like the Kellogg Foundation, Boeing, also LinkedIn Learning. That's been really exciting. I've been able to work with really dynamic entrepreneurs who are making an impact and a change in their sphere of influence. And I've also been able to write 2 books, CEO of Live Video and Visibility is Power. And it's just been an amazing journey. And I think, Edie, we're just getting started. Thank you for holding the book. We're just getting started.
Of course, absolutely. No, I love that. I mean, your story is so inspirational. I'm curious, was there any kind of like critical moment or deciding factor that you're like, I'm going to leave, TV media and I'm going to do this myself? Because I know you spent a lot of time, right, getting your story out there and building your audience. Was there any kind of like point that really was that deciding factor for you to say, I'm going to open up my own business?
It was 2 points. So at this point in time, we're building this business. We wrote the first version of CEO of Live Video. You have the second edition, the expanded edition. But that first book we wrote because someone challenged me that I was an expert and that I knew what I was talking about when it comes to live streaming, so you should write a book. And from writing that book, Edie, it became like our calling card. People were calling us to come to their conferences and their workshops and teach at their mastermind about how to use live stream to be seen, heard, and paid. And so doing that, I was moonlighting as a speaker on the weekends and a TV producer Monday through Friday. And as my husband was driving me to another speaking engagement in Florida, we live in South Carolina, he said to me, I think you should bet on yourself. He said, I don't know all of this Rosho Live thing, but it's a thing. And I think you should bet on yourself and go all in on this. And I remember saying to myself, what do you mean bet on myself? He's like, I think you should do this. Like, leave TV. It was like, are you serious? And in that moment, I realized he's right, because I'm speaking, I'm getting paid for this, we have books. I mean, this thing is happening. Along that same lines, Edie, I went to work one day and there was a trending story online. It was a story that everybody was talking about online. And the news director at the time told me that I could front some stories. So if it's social stories, she knew a little bit about what I was doing online. And so this day I was telling her, hey, this story's blowing up online. I can write it, put it together, and have it ready for air. And she told me no. She said, why don't you put it together and have someone else do it? Like one of the reporters. And I went over to this reporter, and it took me 15 to 20 minutes to explain to this person why this story was important. I walked over to my desk, and that day I said, never again will I try to convince people about the importance of stories. I'm going to tell my own. And that day is when I started writing my resignation letter.
Did you ever get a chance to share that story?
I've shared that story a couple of times. And you know, it's so funny. I've gone back to that TV station and done content for them and been a guest. And one of my former colleagues said to me, Roshanda, you could have been doing this for us. We just didn't see you correctly. We didn't see you. And you know what I told her, Edie? I said, thank you. I'm glad that you didn't see me. Because if you did see me, I wouldn't be doing all of this. And all of this, I believe, is the impactful work that I'm called to do in the world.
100%. I appreciate the abundance mindset that you put forward in going back, continuing the relationship, and thanking them, because it allowed you to, that was your nudge to go out and do what you're doing. I feel similarly in that I heard a no. And when I heard a no and I knew it should have been a yes, I said, now's my time. I need to take this and do it my own way.
Correct. I love that. Sometimes rejection is protection. You know, I think so many times, especially when I'm talking to clients about showing up in the digital space, they're so uncomfortable about that rejection. They're so uncomfortable about failure. But there are things that rejection and failure will teach you much more than success ever will. And I'm grateful for that.
Like every teenager needs to hear that. Every, Gen, it's the one in the middle, Gen Z, millennial, right? Because I feel like I'm recalling, right? Because growing up, I was a latchkey kid. And so I came home, I got my homework done. Like my parents got home at dinner. Maybe I'm making dinner, they're making dinner. And I feel like we're not giving kids and others an opportunity to fail sooner and fail frequently, because that's where you build up that confidence.
Exactly. I was a latchkey kid too. And I feel the same way as well. And when you reframe what people look at as negative, you understand, no, these are things that shaped me, that have built me. This is what has created empathy and passion and compassion in me, all of these things. It's what has made up the fiber of who I am. And I'm just grateful for those experiences.
I think you touched on a magic word, just gratitude, right? Because no matter what, things will change. We just have to take what we've got and make it good. I love doing improv. I took a class in improv, and what they taught us is yes and, right? Take what you're given and work with it. So those have to be your magic words.
Oh my gosh, you took me back. I've done improv as well years ago, and I forgot about the yes and. It's so powerful.
I think we need definitely more of it in this world.
Yes.
Well, I'm curious because I feel like as an entrepreneur myself, it's sometimes very lonely because there's not, unless you build a web of other entrepreneurs to be able to lean on one another and create this tribe, this village. So what are some of the challenges that you did not anticipate in owning your own business that you had to overcome? Maybe you've created a village or a tribe to help you get past those challenging times.
Such a good question. And where do I start? I think the biggest challenge is dealing with people on the outside will look at it and think you're being all over the place. and not understanding that entrepreneurship is the gift to shift, to pivot, whatever word you like to use, right? And so I think there's been so many iterations of growth. Honestly, it's growth. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? And so many iterations of growth that I spent a lot of time struggling with what that perception looks like to people on the outside. Do I look like I'm just all over the place? Do people say, oh yeah, one day she's doing coaching and now she's gone back to consulting. What's going on here? And not understanding, no, it's growth. It's understanding that there's a period of time that I enjoyed this and now I'm learning this, right? You know, I think about when I started learning AI and adopting AI in our business model. I was kind of skittish at first because I was like, oh my gosh, what are people going to say? Now she's trying to be the AI person. But then I realized, well, Roshanda, this is actually a part of this suite of communication, right? If you consider yourself a communications company and you're a communicator, you need to know how to use AI because that's a part of communication. So giving myself grace to pivot, giving myself grace to expand. Right? I think so many times we just want to be locked in something and just locked into it. This is such a good question. The other thing is giving yourself grace to say, this had a good run and we're not doing it anymore. Even in the face of people telling you, no, we love it. Don't close that down. We really enjoy it. But you just realize this no longer fits our model. It no longer fits where we're going. You know, we don't have the capacity, it's not producing, or hey, we did this for 5 or 6 years, it had a good run, and these are events, whatever it is, and you just decide, we're not doing it anymore. Being okay with doing that, giving myself permission to do that. I hope I answered the question.
That's beautiful, yes. So I've got 2 boys, 12 and 14, and I tell them the only thing that you can always count on is that things will change. And so make sure that you are investing in yourself, which is the best investment you will ever make. Education, knowledge, connections, all of that. But know that things will change. And so the sooner you're okay with that, the sooner it's not as scary anymore.
Yes. And humans by nature, we don't like change. It's very uncomfortable. And I have learned to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. I've just learned that, okay, this is going to be uncomfortable and we're going to be okay with that. We're going to feel the feels and navigate through it anyway. And one of the things that you asked in that question, Edie, you said, have you created a community? What does that look like? I think the best thing that I have done, and I recommend this for every entrepreneur, founder, CEO, whatever your title is, the best thing that I've done, community has been great. I have business besties. Get you a therapist. Please go sit on someone's couch, go telehealth, whatever that is. So the best investment in myself and in my business has been my therapist, who I have been with for 4 years. That has been my best investment, therapy.
Yes. Beautiful. Like you said, change is hard.
Yes.
Having someone who has an outlet who's not really trying to help you fix things other than help to push you to explore the greater depth. Because as you were saying earlier, if you're comfortable, it's boring, right? I want a challenge. I know you want a challenge. So we got to keep growing.
Correct. And in order to grow, things have to change. And when you think about a seed being put in the ground, that seed has to break its outer shell for what's inside of it to take root in the ground. A seed has to change. We love the flowers, we love the trees. But if you want flowers and trees in your life, you have to be willing to break the outer to get into the inner.
Well, it's going to be like a little clip on our social media.
I love
Break the seed.
Break the seed. Yes.
So I'm curious, beyond Dad, has there been other influences, mentors along your way? What are the lessons that they taught you?
Yeah. So definitely my grandmothers. They have been a huge influence in my life. So both sides of my family are from Trinidad and Tobago. And so while my grandmothers did not live in the U.S. with me, there were the phone calls and of course the visits and when they would come to the U.S. And my mother's mother would always tell me, books before boys, Roshanda. Books before boys. So she would always tell me that and remind me about the importance of an education. And then my father's mother was a masterful storyteller. I mean, this woman would tell stories, Edie, that were so, you're just like, there's no way this happened. There's no way. She would act out all the voices, and I would just sit at her feet and listen to her stories. Like, yeah, even as a college student, I would just sit at her feet and just sit there and talk to her and say, and what happened next? All of these things. She just taught me so much about the power of storytelling. And she would tell stories and she would embody the story. It wasn't just her vocally, but it was her body and her mannerisms. And I'm like, this is great storytelling, right? And so they have been such a guide and a driving force in my life. And I'm so honored. There's a quote that's out there, and I've seen it on a shirt that says, "You're your ancestors' wildest dreams." And to be able to be an Amazon bestselling author, to be able to work with these big brands and companies, I just think my grandmothers are looking down from heaven and just saying, that's our girl. That is our girl. And we're so, so very proud of her. So I carry their name and their legacy in the work that I do. And I count that as an honor and a privilege. And then I'm really surrounded by really great mentors and tutors. Other women and other men who have taken me under their wing, who encourage me, who correct me in love, who inspire me, who push me a lot, right? And really push me to dream bigger than I dream for myself, and who see farther than I can see. And this is why, even when I'm mentoring those millennials that we talked about, I'm always looking to be for them what I have. Dreaming bigger for them, pushing them farther, speaking into them. And I'm so grateful for those people that I have in my life. And then you know what I'll also say? When I'm talking about community, I'll also have to say my kids, right? I have really great kids, right? Now, granted, they still don't want to clean this room sometimes, and I still got to get on them about these dishes. Typical teen stuff.
Of course.
But I have great kids who will give me ideas, who will say, when I go to a speaking event and come back, will ask, well, how did it go? How did people receive your message? What was the response? To have them at events with me and get in a car and they say, Mom, you did a really good job, or I loved when you said this. And these kids are 17 and 14, right? I mean, they still don't think I'm cool, but just be able to really rally behind what I'm doing, and they've always rallied behind and supported, means a lot. My family rallying behind me means a lot.
That's so beautiful, because I've heard recently from another woman that I spoke with. She said, Edie, generations are waiting on you. And so while it's beautiful to have you share the story that I know your grandmothers, your father, everyone should be very proud of you, I think to let the kids see what you're doing and have them take pride, they might not tell you, but for everybody else, they're like, that's my mom, right? Like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. I want to model that. That's something that is important to me. I don't want to be a public success and a private failure. That's important to me. I'll leave all this behind if I'm failing at home. And so having them be able to say, and even have them say to people, no, my mom is the same person. Who you see her at, who she is at church is the same way she is at home. And who you see her on the stage is the same way she hears. It's the same person. And that's so important to me, because I don't want to be a phony baloney. And I want them to be able to be proud of who I am always, not just some of the time.
So I've discovered you on TikTok, and I'm grateful for the time to speak with you. What do you say when people come up to you because they've seen your videos, but yet you don't know them? I've had this happen where I'm walking into an airport, and my husband travels all the time. But yet whenever I'm out with him or I'm by myself, I walk into the airport and without a doubt, there's someone that I know. And most of the time I'm able to put the pieces together, but there's been a couple of times recently that I'm not.
Yes.
How do you handle strangers that walk up to you and feel like they know you, but you don't know them?
Yeah. So the glasses are always a giveaway.
Yes.
People are all, I was at the gas station. A lady came knocking on the window and she says, are you the Rosho live? And I said, I am. I knew it. I knew it from the glasses. One of the things I always do is I just ask them, I said, what's your name? And one time, one lady said to me, she said, I can't believe you don't know who I am. And when she told, I said, well, tell me your name. And when she told me her name, this is what I told her. I said, oh, I remember you. We met at an event and your hair was a different color. And she said, yeah, I just recently changed it. I said, so how did you expect me to remember when you changed your appearance? And we both had a good laugh. She said,
Of course.
You're right, Ro. You're right. I made a change on you. There was no possible way for you to do that. I think also just letting people know that you're human. I do make a point to remember the people, or try to, who constantly engage with my content. So when people say their name, I said, oh, I remember you. You do X, Y, and Z. They're like, oh my gosh, you remember? I was like, yeah, because you always engage with my content. You always share it. You're a part of the community. But also for those folks, I'm like, I don't know your name. Tell me your name. Tell me what you do. Okay, it's so great to meet you, and thank you so much for being a part of my community and what you do. Can we take a picture together? Of course.
Aww.
And make sure you tag me in it. So I'm just making sure that people feel seen. That's one thing that I tell people all the time. Just as much as your visibility is power, just as much as you want to be seen and heard, so does your audience. So give them the opportunity to do so.
Thank you for sharing that, because
You're welcome.
sometimes I feel like it's awkward, but of
Yeah.
course, like same as your kids described, I'm the same person walking through the airport with my hair
Right.
up in a ponytail that I am at home and with them. So that's really important for people to hear.
Yes. And I think just being honest with people and saying, well, tell me your name. What is it that you do? Okay, that name does look familiar. Okay, well, or thank you so much for following. I'm glad that you enjoy the content. What are you working on? That makes them feel seen, but that also helps you to continue to build that community, which is so important right now.
Yes. My kids ask me, they go, Mom, you're an Uber driver. And I said, well, yeah, I might be an Uber driver, but I also spend a lot of time learning about my market, driving the markets, knowing the people to connect them to. And
Yes.
I find that what really helps is that
Mhm.
you're given 2 ears and we have 1 mouth. So I think that alone should tell you we should listen more than we talk. And so, like you
Amen.
said, engaging your audience and learning from them, because they're spending so much time giving their time to you that it's really beautiful to hear how you give back to them.
Amen. I love that.
Let's see, where do you see the evolution of personal branding going over the next couple of years? I feel like we all have these amazing mediums, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, right, to showcase and voice what our thoughts are, whether you want to do that in written form, in video form, in picture form. Do you feel like more are going to gain confidence with telling their stories? Where do you see personal branding going?
I see we're going into a space where people are going to really be leaning into personal branding, especially as AI continues to grow and develop, that we are going to be a society that's really searching for authentic, vulnerability, transparency, all those things being the new currency. And so I think that we're going to have people who are going to really be leaning into building their personal brand, really honing in on being front and center, because so many things can be created by AI that people really need to know that this is me, this is the real deal, this is me here. And so I think that's going to really just take off in that space because of AI.
Yeah, I think, you and I have obviously been on social media, all of that, but you've now moved into doing events in person. So I'm very curious to hear how educating someone about showing up and either live or on video and talking to the camera, how does that translate? And I'm really leaning into how important it is to be with people in person.
Yeah, there's something powerful about community, and even some of the in-person events that we're doing, we're not doing these mega events. We're not looking to pack out a room of 500, 1,000, and there's nothing wrong with events like that. I've had events where we've had 200 people, and I've attended events that have those numbers, but I think there's something really powerful about intimacy and intimate spaces, and I'm even looking for events like that where it's 10 people in a room, 20 people, maybe 50, but not looking for this mega massive event, because people are really looking for real connection and looking for an opportunity to not feel like you're on speed dating, but I can sit here and have a conversation and really get to know you and see how we can collaborate or partner and do something together in the future. So I think there is this beauty of having an event, but I think there's something powerful about having these small, intimate experiences.
I value that. I've hosted a couple of dinners at my house or out at restaurants, and I find
Oh, I
that for
love that.
me, 12 is that magic number. So it's myself and 11 others. And oftentimes when we're out somewhere, I recommend, hey, whoever you know, you're not allowed to sit next to. Whoever you had your first cocktail, mocktail next to, you're not allowed to sit next to. So hopefully you leave here meeting maybe 3 or 4 people,
Yes.
so that there's value, but it's also a cozy, warm space. And I do my best to meet everybody in advance so that I can help facilitate those interactions. So I would say, Roshanda, I want you to meet Anna. You have this in common. And so it doesn't feel as awkward to get people to start talking and opening up. I've seen some of the conferences will show either like a picture of a dog or a cat or a bird.
Yes.
So that way you can kind of trigger, okay, we have commonality in this, or the person who put the sticker on wants to talk about this.
Yes. I attended an event recently where they had different color lanyards. So it was my first time attending. So it was a yellow. I was considered a newbie. And those who have been more than once had on red. So they could see that and say, oh, you're a newbie. Thank you so much for being here. And what have you enjoyed so far? So it was very welcoming. And that was very intentional, I think, in the networking piece.
Beautiful. And that particular event, just out of curiosity, how many people?
1,000 people.
Oh, that's a
Yes.
big one.
It was a big one. It was all communicators. So there was no shortage of conversations.
For sure. So outside your professional life, what are you passionate about, and how does it influence your work?
I thought you was going to ask me, what's your hobby? I was about to say, girl, I'm into charcuterie boards.
That works too. We can talk about charcuterie.
I love a salted meat and a cracker. The adult Lunchable is what I call it.
Of course.
I think, you know what, that does influence my work, because I think the reason why I love charcuterie boards is because it just brings people together for a conversation. And there's something about food and fellowship that's so powerful. And so I love just stirring conversation, being a conversation starter, and just learning a lot about people and the world around me. So that continues to fuel my work, because I think we don't spend enough time having conversation. There's a lost art to conversation, right? In this text world, in social media, short form video, love it, but man, our attention spans are getting smaller and smaller. I think I read a statistic that said the goldfish has a longer attention span than humans. This is tragic. So going back to this art of conversation and genuinely being interested in other people and what they have to say.
Opportunities to break bread together. So thank you for sharing the piece about their charcuterie just in time for lunch too. So where can our listeners get more information about you and your work?
So I'm hanging out these days on LinkedIn, Roshanda E. Pratt. So please make sure to connect with me on LinkedIn. And of course, connect to our website. We are in a process of revamping it, but the rosholive.com would be a place for you to check us out and see our work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roshanda, for joining us on Hustle and Heart. Your journey from campus TV to powerhouse in the industry is truly inspiring. The insights you shared in conquering imposter syndrome, building camera confidence, and crafting a visibility strategy are invaluable for anyone looking to own their voice. Here's to confidence, visibility, and inspiring change.
Hi there, my name is Roshanda Pratt, and you're listening to Hustle and Heart.